we're talking about food here. Everybody likes to talk about food. And certainly when I go to visit Chip in New Orleans or wherever I get together with Chip, it includes cans. You can be involved in the roundtable. We'll get you on the list. You don't have to be a member. We'll have a lively discussion today. So this is AA4FL Net Control. Make your call now. Kilo 4 Whiskey Foxtrot Papa. QSL lane. Kilo 4 Whiskey Foxtrot Papa. Thanks for coming in and joining us. I was a little west of you yesterday. I was out at the Ocala, the World Equestrian Center. We hopped over to watch the horses. And so some of the participants there practicing for routine for competitions. Quite a nice place. Well, we're about to get to the top of the hour. So far, we have myself, N4TSC, N3IM, PY2BBQ, N9OML, N5RTF, and K4WFP, Wayne and Ocala. Are there any other stations that would like to do an early check-in? Go ahead and call AA4FL. Well, it's top of the hour, and it's time to start the net here, the Medical Image Radio Pencil TV net. Good morning, good afternoon to Hilton. And we haven't had any Japanese hands check in yet, so it's good evening to them when they do check in. No one from India yet here today. I'll be net control. It's AA4FLJ here, Hawthorne, Florida. The purpose of the Marco Digital Voice Net is to provide a discussion forum for current medical events and issues and other aspects of membership and making new friends on the air here. And our members are, of course, encouraged to participate. The stations, all national and international, are welcome to join in and participate in the discussion. Will not be limited to medical topics. Let me let it drop one. We are a directed network from a call-in list. Calls will be made to the net control. We do keep a session log using NetLogger. So if you know how to use NetLogger, go ahead and sign in. We use the message window as well to have comments back and forth. And as I can see right now, we have another station that's checking in, K3FZT. Steve, I'm going to go ahead and add you to the check-in list. Thanks for coming by. We meet every Saturday at 1500 UTC. And remember, the repeaters and the QuadNet is a system of linked technologies, not just repeaters. So we've got many different modalities. A server here needs time to sync so that everyone can communicate well with each other. So please don't tailgate. Wait 3 to 5 seconds after the previous person transmits, and make sure even after you key up the pause for at least 2-3 seconds, it will help in the efficiency of the net operating. Let me let it drop one here. And of course, please limit the conversation to 2 minutes before letting it drop for a few reasons. Excuse me. One is repeater timeouts, and of course, if you talk too long and something happens technologically where your signal drops, we won't be able to inform you. In 2 minutes, we can pretty much guess that your transmission was over. So if there's any stations that have emergency or priority traffic, please call Net Control AA4 FL now. No emergency traffic heard. Hilton has posted to the NetLogger the link to today's YouTube streaming recording here. So if you would like to do it that way, or MarcoAudio.net. I believe Chip also has it running. Both are excellent ways of being involved. If you're having technology problems, or if you know others that don't have EV capability and would like to participate, it gives them a chance to do so. Are there any stations that have limited time or are mobile? Go ahead and make your call. Well, I'm glad everyone's here for a nice chat and has time to be friends here, do a friendly discussion this morning, this afternoon. So, are there any stations that I haven't already announced that have checked in that would like to check in at this time? If so, go ahead and make your call to AA4FL.
AA9HQ.
AA9HQ. Nice to have you on board, Ron. Thank you for joining us here. I see you're from North Myrtle Beach, somewhere where I'll be next month, actually, visiting for a week. We have two members that live in that area as well here from Marco. Thank you for joining us and added you to the roundtable discussion, which will start here after we've given others an opportunity to check in. And at this time, are there any other stations, whether or not you're a medical administrative council member or not? We'd love to have your participation. We'll have a nice discussion right now. We have 9 people, so it'll be a very effective roundtable. If so, go ahead and make your call for check into AA4FL. Well, no other calls heard. We'll give a chance for additional check-ins later. We'll start the roundtable, and it was a nice week here. I fully recovered from my bout of COVID, and started to get back my stamina. Been working out in the yard the last 2 or 3 days pretty hard, making a nice sweat, getting some well-needed exercise, and dealing with the jungle from all the rain we've had here in North Florida. It's been 2 weeks of it, and I wish I could ship it to the areas that have drought because we know so many people are in need. And we're here in Hawthorne is Alachua County, where Gainesville is, pretty eastern fringe of the county, about 15 miles east of the University of Florida. And we're going to go ahead and start the roundtable discussion. And first, and I'm not sure if the equipment will be working, Jerry, so keep it a little short at first. Let's do a test transmission. And for TSC, go ahead. Okay, no transmission from Jerry. He may be monitoring. We have some equipment that we need to figure out a few technical aspects. Not Jerry's faults, just same. I have the same problem with my old HD. Not liking hotspots anymore. It's just very limited in what it can do. Uh, 3IM. Keith, go ahead.
AA4FL in the group. Um, yeah, I don't have a lot to say right now, other than the fact that we're playing with our radios downstairs from time to time, and trying to get everything straightened out. Otherwise, COVID has been a little bit more um, active in this area in the last week or so, but has not created any significant increase in hospitalizations. So from that standpoint, we're good. And I think part of the reason we're seeing the increase in COVID. There's a lot of outdoor activities going on and we have the university here with student population, which varies from time to time, but overall, everybody's enjoying themselves. This weekend's Riverfest, so they're having a good time down there, and I'm sure that's why our COVID numbers have increased a little bit, was because these outdoor activities are taking place. This is N3IM.
N3IM, AA4FL, net control for the Medical Amateur Radio Council, DVNet. Sorry to hear the numbers are picking up, Keith, but I'm glad that morbidity has not really increased and the mortality is not an issue with hospitalizations and people dying. And most of the friends that I've spoken to that have gotten COVID recently have all done well. They obviously had bad colds and some symptoms of loss of taste or smell, but recovered within 10 days for the most part. And I thought some of the articles that we shared last week were very helpful to me, especially hearing that if you go out after 5 days, which the CDC suggests to return to work, that half the people from day 6 to 9 are still shedding virus. So I encourage my friends to just try not to go out those additional times and make sure if they do to wear a mask. But it certainly seems like this one is just spreading. Let me let it drop one. AA4FL for the Medical Amateur Radio Council, DVNet. My father-in-law is in a 5-story building, which is an independent living facility where they have meals downstairs, and everybody right now is on lockdown, having to stay in the room and then delivering food. It's the third time this has happened. It's been a while since one of the other waves of COVID. I don't know how many we've had here in Florida. Florida's been pretty high throughout the entire state and for a while, and I'm about 300 miles north of my second residence, and it's going around the neighborhood down there of seniors that live in villas and apartments. So I'm sure you all have similar stories to tell. Be looking forward to hearing your perspective. PY2 BBQ Hilton, I know you're enjoying your friendship and your company and your day out. But if you'd like to make a presentation, please go ahead, Hilton. PY2 BBQ AA4FL.
Okay, A4FL and the group. This is PY2BBQ Hilton from São Paulo, Brazil. More precisely from Ilha Comprida in the south of the São Paulo state. And yes, last week I couldn't participate in that, and I was not able to say that was a great fan to participate of the 13 colonies event during the Independence Day week. And I'm happy I did a clean sweep in CW this year. And it's very fun to go through the pilots, even with 100 watts and a dipole antenna from São Paulo. It was a great fun. So regarding COVID-19 here in Brazil, we are seeing a lot of new cases and quite a few severe cases, considering the number of new cases. Even though, as the number are really high, we have several people in the hospital. In the hospital I work, 700 beds, 100 beds are for COVID-19, and we have about half a dozen patients under under mechanical ventilation. And what we see in the whole country is like 100 to 300 daily deaths. So it's not such a low number. So that's the story here. Back to you, JA4FL, PY2BBQ.
QSL, Hilton. Hilton, when the numbers were peaking in Brazil in the first wave, when there was a lot more deaths, were your numbers daily in the 2,000 range at the height of the pandemic? Over.
Oh yes, it's much different than it was in the peak. We reached 4,000 daily deaths during the worst scenario. Now we have from 100 to 300 deaths daily. Over.
QSL, out of curiosity, if you know the answer to this, being that I'm a dentist and not a physician, and you're working in a hospital environment, what would you guess that the daily deaths are from the flu, pneumonia, uh, aside from COVID, just as a comparison to how much morbidity the two different diseases are causing? Over.
Oh well, Jay, I'll give you my personal opinion, not related to consistent data, but I think what we see now is the same morbidity and mortality of the influenza code. And the difference is that, well, it's the same. We are in the winter time now. It's the time for influenza as well. We didn't have we didn't have such a high vaccination numbers in influenza as we used to have years before. But yes, I think COVID-19 and influenza are in the same level of morbidity and mortality here in Brazil at this time. A4FL, QI2BBQ.
Okay, understand that perspective, but perhaps others will chime in as we go around with their perspective of that as well. Thank you for participating, Hilton, for doing the recording, and of course the individual participation. And enjoy your warm winter day in Brazil. Have a great time. Enjoy your barbecue. And I know about Howard in Chicagoland. Go ahead.
A4FL and everybody in the group, and they all know. Our volcanic activity is supposedly all centered around BA4 and BA5, with BA5 being supposedly much more transmissible. And all but 8 counties in Illinois are in the high level of transmissibility or disease activity. I don't know exactly how they define that, but it is a change for the worse in the last week. Um, and the only other thing that I've kind of been tracking of interest is the shooting events in Highland Park and the performance of the trauma team and the medics on the street. And as horrible as that tragedy was, it sounds like they probably saved a lot of lives. There was rapid intervention, rapid use of tourniquets. The medical providers were in the parade in the area, so there was an immediate response. And the first of the hospitals was around the corner, and the North Shore Hospital system has a pretty robust trauma system in place. So, as well as something like that could work out, I would say that part of it worked out. They have the providers, the equipment, and the people have the services. And I don't know, back to that control.
Thank you, Howard, and thank you for participating in the net. You're present almost every week, and we do appreciate the reports from Chicago and your friendship. This is AA4FL, the Medical Image Radio Council Digital Voice Net. Are there any additional check-ins at this time? Anyone that hasn't checked in already, you don't have to be a Marco member. If you're listening, like to be part of the roundtable, we're already halfway through the discussion group. Everyone will get a chance to participate. So if there are any additional check-ins, please go ahead and make your call to AA4FL this time. Okay, no additional check-ins heard. Well, Chip, N5RTF, you are in the post-Mardi Gras season, and you've mentioned that you're in the crab boil. So tell us a little bit about, I assume, your blue crabs, and tell us about your adventures there. You've been doing any fishing off the dock there as well. N5RTF, AA4FL, go ahead.
AA4FL and 5RTF. First, am I understanding correctly? You had COVID. When was that?
Yeah, it ran through our house about 4 weeks ago. Randy first, then Dustin, and then myself. So over the period of 2.5 to 3 weeks, we all got for the first time. All of us had been vaccinated, and Randy and I had 2 boosters. Dustin had one. I was the last to succumb, and turning positive, I was taking care of everybody else. But uh, the family had it. The kids had it. The grandkids about a month before that. Howard.
I'm so sorry. I hope everyone is well now. I heard you say that you felt a little weak. Terry and I had it, we think, back in 2019 before anybody was even aware of it. We were both very, very sick in the fall of 2019. Mine lasted a week, hers lasted a month. And then several of our friends were hospitalized at the same time, again with unknown illness. But that and a couple of vaccinations. So far, we've been very fortunate and not caught it again. We're enjoying our time out here on the water. We are not catching a lot of fish, but the crabs are out there every day, and it's just a matter of baiting the crab trap with a chicken drumstick, throwing it in, and waiting about 2 to 6 hours, and then you got a couple of crabs. We've got 4 traps, so we can catch a meal in about 6 hours in 5 RTS.
It sounds delicious. When you do catch fish there, do you have redfish off the dock too as well, or is it just catfish? What's the usual fish in the canal there?
Well, so far in the canal, I have caught bluegill, red ear, speckled trout, flounder, one gar. Um, let's see. The only thing I haven't caught is a redfish. To do that, I'm gonna have to get out in the boat and go out circling around some of the docks and things like that at the mouth of the canal. And I've just been looking for good weather to do it. I could probably be out there right now, but it's going to be a pretty hot day. So I'm thinking more in the fall. I'm going to get out and do more of that. Plus the fish are bigger than in 5 RTS.
QSL, understood. Yeah, I guess you got to find some holes where they're a little deeper in the hole. That sounds like a little piece of heaven there. Enjoy it very much, Jeff. Give my best to Terry as well. Glad you happy for you both. Glad you have a nice, enjoyable place to relax. and a happy retirement in the upcoming future to both of you. Uh, Next will be Wayne, K4WFP. Good morning, Wayne. Go ahead.
A4FL in the group, K4WFP. Good morning, Jay and the group. Um, have not been on the last couple of times, and our house was actually hit by lightning, so it kept us off dealing with the power company and insurance companies now. I think it was a two-pronged attack. Lightning came up the cable line and destroyed the incoming cable and set the cable box on fire. But on top of that, it took the top of a tree out, and I think it took the neutral out or crossed the lines, and we had a voltage surge in the house, which took out all of the appliances. So we've been dealing with State Farm, trying to get ourselves back online with the appliances and have to have a panel box replaced and all the outlets in the house. Half of them were charred, and anything plugged into them was either charred or ejected from the outlet like a projectile. Um, and like I said, every appliance except for the air conditioning, the central air conditioning unit remarkably survived, thank goodness, in the heat. But that's what we've been dealing with. As far as COVID, nothing, no facts, just anecdotal. It does seem to be making its round in the area. I do know that over Field Day, the Village's amateur radio group, which I'm a member of, they participated in Field Day, and I saw a bunch of the emails afterwards that many of them came down with COVID after that. So that's all I can contribute. So
Wayne, thank you for joining us, and understand you have a lot of responsibility there and a lot of issues to solve. I'm sorry to hear about a direct strike that caused all that damage. Were you home at the time, by the way? Okay, lost you here, Wayne. Thanks for stopping by. Hopefully my transmissions are being received by everyone. We can come back to you, Wayne, for additional comments. Steve, K3FCT. Good morning. Go ahead.
AA4FL group. This is K3FCT, Steve in Philadelphia. Well, Wayne's story is a reminder to do as I've done, which involves heavy duty whole house surge suppressors, which are not about small variations in the line. It's about when the high tension 4800 or 9600 line that feeds your local transformer happens to end up crossing your 240, 120, 240 line, or the neutral gets taken out in a lightning strike, or any of those sorts of things. So think about whole house surge suppressors. Your electrician can install. Okay, wait one. On the COVID front, Philadelphia is seeing some increase in cases and evidence for transmissibility. Like most everybody else, not a big increase in deaths. But do realize, folks, that we're talking about something in excess of 300 deaths a day across the country, which is pretty startling number. And to answer your question, Jay, um, it's not in terms of influenza related deaths. They tend to occur in a more concentrated period during the late fall, winter, and early spring. So, anyway, we'll see what's happening as the days go by. I am continuing to avoid crowds, even outside crowds. Beyond that, it's good to hear everybody here. I've been playing with wire antennas. Today I'm going to put up an active receiving antenna for the Hamsai Grape, which is a device for looking at space weather by Doppler shifts in GPS signals. So that's all I've got, and thanks for this great net and for the folks you gathered, Jay. Let me turn it back to you. This is Steve in Philadelphia, K3FZ.
Well, thank you, Steve. Thank you for the compliments. This is AA4FL Net Control, and we enjoy everyone's friendship and camaraderie here on Saturday mornings as well. Ron, AA9HQ, let's go ahead and take the mic and tell us all about yourself, and feel free to bring up any discussion threads that additionally you'd like to discuss. Go ahead. Okay, perhaps AA9HQ has moved on here. Thank you for everyone for joining us. We had a book club, the third one scheduled. It was Tuesday night. We haven't had a lot of participation, so I opened it up to make it sort of just a coffee house type discussion of shortwave listening, radio equipment, things you remember from your childhood. So with that in mind, I'd be interested. We only had two people participate, in addition to myself, and I'd sure like to hear from all my friends here. Were you shortwave listeners before you were hams? Were you what type of equipment did you operate when you were novices, if you were novices? And let's go ahead and start with Keith, N3IM.
This is N3IM in the group. Yeah, I got interested in electronics at a young age. Made a number of different night kits and heath kits. Made my own stereo system from heath kit and various things like that. Had a friend here, well, a friend of my father's son was an amateur radio operator and got me interested, but I didn't actually get involved with amateur radio until I was at the University of Pittsburgh. and W3YI was the University of Pittsburgh radio station. They had the Drake line, the R4C and the TX4C, and they had a long wire antenna out that went across the towers that used to be there that were for dorms. I got my novice there, WN3 RBK, and passed my tech there, and got a Cherokee and a Cheyenne Heathkit radios and a Hamfest, and those were my first radios. And then things started becoming more busy and everything, and I got my tech license up. I made a Heathkit 2-meter crystal controlled radio, which worked really well. And it wasn't until I was getting out of medical school that I was finally able to get to general and then advanced and then amateur extra. So that's my story here. This is N3IM.
Okay, hopefully I'm being copied. Go ahead, AA9HQ. Go ahead, take the mic. AA4SL.
AA4FL, AA92, just checking first that you're hearing me okay, over.
QSL, Ron, we copy you clearly now, over.
Okay, very good. I don't know what happened before, but obviously it wasn't transmitting. Anyway, I'm in North Myrtle Beach, moved here from Woodstock, Illinois about 3 years ago. I'm using an Anytone D878 to a Raspberry Pi hotspot. This is actually my first DLR Plus contact, so that's why I was checking there in case I had messed something up. Anyway, COVID-wise, I've known a few people in the last couple of weeks that have come down with it. Fortunately, none of them hospitalized. Seem to be fairly mild. Symptoms recovered quickly. And I just heard from 2 friends of ours up in the Washington, D.C. area that they became positive COVID yesterday. So that's kind of what I know about that at the moment. Thanks for picking this up. I appreciate it. And let me turn it back to you. And thanks again. 73 is AA4FL, AA9HQ.
Well, fantastic. Thank you for coming by, Ron. Your transmission was solid that time. No problem copying. I'm glad you're enjoying North Myrtle Beach after relocating from Illinois. And so we have 2 Marco members. One is a full-time resident, and she's a nurse. And actually, she's a physician, not a nurse. She's an MD. And another one is someone that lives in the Raleigh area and has a second home in North Myrtle. It was his dad's place. So I am going to be coming up for a week here, the week of August 24th. I'll try to say hello. Thanks for stopping by, and we're also talking about what got us interested in amateur radio. So if we did shortwave listening or what kind of equipment we had in the early days. So why don't I ask you, Ron, before we move back to the beginning of the list, to tell us a little bit more about your experiences. AA9HQ, AA4FL.
AA4FL, AA9HQ. Very good, Jay. I've been licensed since 1967. Original call was WA9ZJL, Zulu Juliet Lima. As soon as I was eligible, because there used to be a wait period for extra class, I took the test at Dayton Hampton and got my extra, and that's when I got to call 889HQ. So I've had that for quite a while, certainly since the mid 70s, and started out with kind of a helicopter's receivers like SX-101 or 111, don't remember the model exactly, and an ICO kit CW transmitter for the crystal. Got interested because of a amateur group run by a teacher at our high school, and then I got an HW-101, used that for quite a while. Eventually, I got a Kenwood transceiver, 570, and then down on HF, sideband CW, FK, and
Hi, Business Ron. Nice to meet you. Nice hearing about your background there in amateur radio. And you've been licensed for quite a while now. I had a similar story about the extra, not the waiting period, but when I got my extra, there were no 1x2s, so the FCC actually contacted me when they opened up the AA block in the mid 70s and asked which call I'd like. So people often ask me, we have vanity calls. I didn't realize, you could actually get a call like AA4FL and didn't have to pay for it. I just get that call. I was WB for Zulu Victor Foxtrot, which it was kind of hard to come up phonetics for that. There was a lot of letters to send to CW, so I was glad to move on with a new call. Thanks for stopping by, Ron. Anytime, we're here every 1500 every Saturday morning. We'd love to have you participate. This is AA4FL Net Control for the Medical Amateur Radio Council TV Net. We're talking about our origins of amateur radio, shortwave listening, early equipment that we had. And Hilton, if you're still here, how about you telling it from a Brazilian perspective, BY2, PY2 BBQ? BBQ, just realized you're having a barbecue today. That's funny. Hilton, go ahead. This is AA4FL.
Okay, A4FL and the group. This is BY2 BBQ returning. That's a very nice discussion. My father was a ham and a doctor as well. He's a silent K now. And I was involved with ham radio since I remember from my existence, when I was a teenager, I was able to send and receive CW. And when I was 16, I got my Class C license. In Brazil, we have 3 different levels, C, B, and A. And 2 or 3 years later, I was Class A already. My former call was PY2 Uniform Alpha Whiskey UAW, which was very nice for CW. Although our call letters here, Papa Yankee and Jew, and they are always too long for CW and for pileups. So it's terrible. Many times when I finish sending my call letters, the other part has already answered, just especially for some key number, 1 or 2 more letters. Those 3 letters calls are very fast for CW sending. Wait one. But anyway, I went to medical school. We at that time when I was 16, we had an old Swan 350 transceiver and a kind of homemade linear amplifier to a three-element Siagi. And then I went to medical school, and my activity in ham radio was very low, and it kept like that till the year 2000, when it was my last QSOs or PY2 UAW. At that time, we had a Yaesu 76, oh, I don't remember, 765 GX2 and Yaesu linear amplifier as well, and the antenna was much better. It was a 6-element beam, and but actually I stayed QRT for almost 20 years, and then in 2019, 3 years ago, I came back to ham radio because of my activities in the São Paulo State Civilian Defense, and we needed to start civilian defense ham radio station, and I because I spent almost 20 years out of radio. I need to get a new call sign. That's why the PY2 BBQ call sign. So that's the story. And about 1 year from now, I came back to CW, and I'm having a lot of fun. I'm doing most of my QSOs in CW, and a lot of fun. So that's the story, JA4FL, PY2 BBQ.
Hilton, that's very interesting. Thank you for explaining. I didn't realize that you had a period of inactivity and just came back because you seem so seasoned and you're certainly up to date with technology as well. We're glad you have you back, and thank you for everything you do for your local community in Brazil in general, because I know you contribute quite a bit to emergency preparedness and civil defense. Thank you for being part of Marco. I'm going to digress for a moment before I go to Chip here and just tell you, well, actually to Howard. Uh, from my background, interesting enough, today I was a novice in 1972 and have been a shortwave listener before that. But my junior high school, someone taught an evening class in amateur radio, and the point of the story is that tonight I'm actually going to a local meeting of North Florida DX Association. And my owner, who taught me in 1972, lives here locally, and we see each other all the time. And he's been the president of that a few times, and we both enjoy DX, and we both have been educators as well. So, um, yeah, it's funny the way life takes twists and turns, and particularly gratifying, Hilton, is to hear about your CW. Let me let it drop one. When I was a child in middle school, I did not consider myself to be an exceptional student, and for some reason, I embraced Morse code, and when I did, I don't know what clicked. If it's coincidence, I started to have an academic increase in capability, or if the neurons were connecting. But I think, like Hilton here, as I get older, the CW would be an excellent way of keeping those neurons firing. So I know you've been participating in the fists or the formal CW activities, and I commend you for that. and others might want to comment on my supposition that perhaps it was partially responsible for my increase in intelligence. So maybe just getting a ham radio ticket did that. Maybe it just came with the ticket back then before we had CBers and amateur radio would have to take CW tests. Hi, hi. Howard, N9OML, go ahead and take the mic.
Hey, Jay, and everybody on the net. My earliest radio kind of remembrances are at my parents' house or my grandparents' house in the night, turning off the lights and sitting actually behind the radio, staring through the grid on the back. It was a home light or something like that with a big white body for the radio, and trying to tune in distant AM stations and identify them. And I have to take a radio because I like to watch the tubes, glow of the tubes in the radio. My first amateur radio was FT207R, a Yaesu portable, and I started getting into 2 meters a little bit locally, and eventually went to a mobile unit, and the HF station I have is a Kenwood 440S, I believe, but I basically have that being stored right now due to antenna restrictions. And then about, I guess, 2 years ago now, I got into the digital stuff with the P74 and an Open Spot 3, and I'm liking that a lot because the local communications on 2 meter and 440 were very similar to work communications or CD. Maybe not as loony as CD, but had a similar feel to it all. The digital mode here, I'm able to talk to people around the world or pick interest groups that I want to interact with, so that's pretty neat. And yeah, my earliest recollections are staring at the glow of the tubes in the back of the radio. The book I thought was real good. I enjoyed it. It was a little bit like reading a textbook. It was a well-done book. And I apologize for missing the map. I had some surgery that day. And then, 73. I hope everybody's well. Continue to monitor.
N9OML, AA4FL Net Control for the Medical Amateur Radio Council, DVNet. So Howard, it's interesting to hear your perspective, and now you read the book as well, and I guess it was sort of academic in that the person's research from his education resulted in this textbook that was published in coordination with the Museum of Science in England. I was doing this, reading it on Kindle, and you can track how many percentage of the book you finished with. All of a sudden, it got to like 81%, and the rest of the book was the citation. So yeah, it was a very academic paper. So the experiences of Big Light Radio, the tubes, and the glow, I had similar experiences, but not with the tubes, but listening to far distant stations and finally getting an antenna, which increased that capability. And the way you described it was very much the allure of the book. So the book was talking about radio waves, and it wasn't necessarily a deep scientific exploration, but it covered the impacts on society and the developments that did occur from a science standpoint, but also from a social standpoint. And if anybody didn't get a chance to read it and needs the link to the book, let me know. We'll get it to you. I'm glad you got a chance to read it, Howard. Thanks for letting us know that. So, Chipster, I know a little bit about your radio heritage, at least when it comes to Marco, but I'm not sure about amateur radio in general. And 5RTF, AA4. So.
4FL and 5RTF. Yeah, I've always liked electronics. I fell in love with electricity as a child and shocked myself many times until I figured out how to do it safely. But my dad and I got into CD when I was around 12, built a night kit CD and talked on that, and then got some others. And then at 15, I got a novice ham license, but I've never used it. I got interested in girls and took off in another direction. Went to college, went to medical school, and got back into ham radio in my residency. Wait one. I got a technician license around 89, 90. Took advantage of the high sunspot peak then. That's also when I got into Marco and rapidly went on to advanced. And then took me a while to get 20 words a minute code, and when I got my extra a year or so later. Um, but I'm still more of a hardware guy, I guess, than talking. I don't chase DX. I enjoy rack chewing, but I'm still more interested in putting pieces together and making them talk to me in 5RTF.
Okay, Chip, M5RTF, AA4FL. I enjoyed hearing that additional information because I kind of knew the part from the residency on and some of the connections you made in amateur radio and Marco at that point. I didn't realize that you had your novice at a younger age and finally found the stimulus that you needed to participate more actively. That's an interesting story, and I'm glad to have you here. And the more we talk as a group, and we can all see that amateur radio is a very dynamic hobby. We all like different aspects of the hobby, but yet we come together and meet, have a common ground for friendship. Uh, for me, lately, it's been 6 meter FT8 and the DX that you can get on those low signals. And it can be frustrating at times because some of the openings are so brief, they may only be for 15 to seconds to a minute, and you don't get enough cycles to have a QSO, but you can see someone heard you in some far place. Could be Russia, it could be where else was I copied? Czech Republic, but I didn't make contact with them this time. However, I did with Z66X in Kosovo. Had a 3 minute opening. So there's all kinds of fun stuff there. Enjoyable hobby. I'm glad that everyone here on the group has their own way of enjoying the hobby. Uh, K4 WFP Wayne, let's hear a little bit more about your background in amateur radio. AA4, I'll go ahead. Okay, the discussion's getting a little long here, and I'm sure there's some of us that having a busy Saturday morning. I didn't copy you that time, Wayne. So if you do here, we'll come back and get you next. But Steve, J3SGT, go ahead.
Thank you, Jay, and the group. Uh, I was licensed as a 13-year-old with both a novice and a tech. I took a course at Philadelphia's Franklin Institute. It was one of many courses I took there. I was definitely a science nerd, and electricity, electronics was very much the center of that. The year before, I built an analog computer with precision.
Okay, I sent Steve some messages on NetLogger. Steve, if you're copying again, you dropped right after talking about building a computer after you finished talking about the Franklin Institute. So if you're copying again, I'll let you go ahead and pick it up once again.
Thanks for the note on the screen. I'm on my DV Megacast. Okay, I'll be brief. Um, Around 1980 or shortly thereafter, I got an early HT. VHF FM repeaters were available, and that's what I played with for the next 20 even 30 years. Moving to this house for retirement provided the space and the opportunity to get back online, but still with a big inclination towards digital modes, digital sound card modes, as well as digital voice modes. And of course, after a career in emergency medicine, ARES, and MCOM activities, I was interested to hear Chip's comment about liking hardware and putting things together. I'm the same way, much more interested than I am in operating, although I did get some thrills on 30-meter FT8 yesterday early evening. Back to you, Jay, K3FZT.
So, Steve, what were the thrills? Was it DX thrills or on 30 meters? Correct.
Not Super DX. I mean, a bunch of European stations, but for the first time, I wasn't really struggling with FT8 to make QSOs. They were just happening, and I was understanding how to tune the waterfall, and it was working. Like I hear and see other people have it working, so that made me happy, especially because it was on my brand new, shorter, terminated inverted V, K3FZ.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying FT8 on the HF bands on 30. 30 can be a wonderful band. Just as an aside, one of my students one time got a package at the university for him, and I brought it to him, and it was shipped to the Gator Amateur Radio Club. And I said, "Oh, you got a package from France?" And he explained to me that was for a competition. He used Whisper, the real slow transmission where you use almost no power, just milliwatts. Maybe even that's a lot actually for Whisper. It was a similar mode, and he had, I guess, had a competition for figuring out copying like a UPC code, not a UPC, the codes that they use these days for advertising. And he submitted one to the contest. They sent him some chocolate and wine. So he would monitor for 24 hours at a time his signal overseas and, on this little tiny transmitter, and seeing copies in Australia. And 30 is an exciting band. I really enjoy 30. I worked the VK0MQ on FT8, the Macquarie Island, needed that for a new DXCC entity. I'm glad you're enjoying amateur radio, Steve, and getting a little HF fun in there as well. Are there any other stations that would like to add an additional thread or make additional comments? Go ahead and make a call to AA4FL now. We'll make a list before we call the network list. This is AA4FL. Go ahead.
November 3, India Mike.
Okay, thank you, Keith. We're going to let you finish up and wrap up the net here. Go ahead and take the mic.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment about my introduction to Marco. I had a Kenwood TS530S and a dipole, and I saw in the magazine about Marco, and I got on the 40 meter net on Tuesdays and Thursday nights, and then the Sunday net back when Bob Morgan and um, oh Ed and Briner and myself we get contacts from other places. And at that time, I was still WA3 RBK, and as you can imagine, that K at the end of WA3RB, when they went to the 2x2s and the 1x2s numbers, created quite a bit of problem for CW, which is why I went to a vanity called N3IM, which works out very nice for CW. But that was my introduction to Marco, and that was back in probably the late 80s. And we had quite a good time there. Warren was on also, by the way, and we had a great time on those nets. As far as computers are concerned, my first computer course was in 1970, my senior year of college, and it was all programming, and it was punch cards. And from there, I continued to enjoy electronics. So that's a little bit more of my story. This is N3IM. Back to the group.
Thank you for sharing that story, Keith, and thank you for everything through the years you've done for Marco, because you've been one of the more active former presidents who stayed active, set up the display in Dayton for many years, and Xenia, and just been a stalwart for the organization. Thank you for everything you do for Ambridge Radio and for life in general, even the intramural sports at the college level that you participate in, the boxing and supporting. Thank you for everything you do, and give my love and hellos to Vicky there as well. I'm going to call the net to a close. I'll hang around if anybody else would like to have personal conversation. This is the Medical Average Radio Council DVNet. Thank you for everyone that joined in on the roundtable discussion today. We'll be back again next Saturday morning here at 1500 UTC. I'm about to return back to the QuadNet array for general amateur use. And again, I will be here. Thank you for the volunteers at the QuadNet array for everything they do to make sure the technology that allows us to have this wonderful discussions using different digital modalities, overcoming the Tower of Babel that would occur from different manufacturers, formats, and standards. So we do appreciate the QuadNet array. Thank you for the administrators who have vast hours of contributions of their own volunteerism to make it happen. 7-3, everyone, have a wonderful week. This is AA4FL bringing this week's net session for the Medical Image Radio Council DVNet to a close. 7-3.